Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to the August edition of Molten Music Monthly. Well, I say it's August, it's the last day of August. I'm just about to squeeze this out with a little bit of luck as the light starts to fade and the month runs away with itself, because it's been the flipping school holidays and I've had kids all over the place and holidays and things going on and stuff getting in the way. And so here I am trying desperately just to squeeze out this month's edition before the clock ticks us on to September, which will undoubtedly be an even more exciting month than the last one. So we're just going to crack on with this month's music technology news and exciting happenings. So it turns out that playing with your balls can actually be a musical instrument. Tracktion released version 7 for free and secretly released some very cool virtual instruments. Percussa SSP takes on VST. Folktek grows some modules in their garden. Aeolian Meditation chills into some complex additives. Cypher 2 and Crusher X embrace MPE. Strange science instruments try to tell us why. ModulAIR is a slightly dodgy but very fun virtual modular environment. Omnisphere 2.5 is actually really good. And we finally find something useful to do with the Surface Dial. But first, the Surface Go, the little squidgy little Surface tablet thing that's just been released in the UK by Microsoft. I know you've had it for weeks over in the States, but we've only just got it over here. Let me get it. Look at that. What a cute little thing. Look, it's a cutie. Oh yes it is. It's a tiny little tablety kind of thing. Now I'm going to do a whole bunch of videos on this because there's been an uncommon amount of interest into what it can do, what it could possibly do for music technology. Now there's going to be tons of people out there who aren't the slightest bit interested, but there seems to be at least an equal amount of people who are fascinated by the idea of having an extremely underpowered little mobile studio system. So I'm going to be looking into that a great deal. It is, of course, massively underpowered and inappropriate size and has a touch interface that nothing really uses. But even so, I'm going to give it a go. I mean, people are very funny about computer specs. They seem to forget that 20 years ago, we were running Ableton Live, Reason, Cubase, all these bits of software on crappy little computers that couldn't power a phone these days. But we were doing it, we were making music. So these things are possible. But will it work? Will it be any good? I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to find out. Now, I did a load of tests on the Surface 3 a few years ago, and that actually turned out all right. And this is a successor to the Surface 3. So I have every hope that it's possible to run stuff on this. How much? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Oddball have been bothering me about the release of Oddball for the past few months. It's like every week I get a new press release saying, oh yeah, it's nearly here. It's going to be fantastic. It's the most awesome thing you have ever seen. Oh, I don't know about that, but it certainly is a thing I've never seen before. It's a ball, it's a rubber ball. You bounce it, it goes, you catch it, it goes, and then you go boom, 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 clap or something. I don't know. It's a ball, it bounces, it makes a noise, it triggers an app, it goes boom and it goes shh, and you can use it to create, I suppose, gravity infused percussive sequences and rhythms and beats and grooves and stuff. You could bounce it against the wall like you're Steve McQueen in The Great Escape, really trying to do everybody else's head in with his constant beats. I mean, could it produce some sort of unintentional and randomized beats? I'm sure it could. Could you do it with two at once? Yes, you could, and get some sort of polyrhythms thing going on. What about three juggling at once? Yeah, that could work. It could be fascinating. It could just be a load of old rubbish. I don't know. I haven't played with one. I try to stay away from the sort of the weirdo controllers these days. I've been through all of them. All sorts of gesture controls and this controls. Well, I say I'm staying away. I've still got the weird wavering thing to turn up at some point. But I'm a sucker for these sorts of experimental MIDI interface controller type things. But I've no idea how good it is because I haven't had any balls to play with. I mean, somebody send me one in and I'll give it a go. I did a full-on review of Tracktion 7 when it was their flagship DAW. And the first one, I think, that really sort of caught up with everything else that was going on. Still didn't have a mixer, but it had everything else in there to call itself a proper professional DAW with lots of interesting features like an LFO you could slap all over the place to anything you like. Individual effects and editing and weird modulation going on within clips, within the arrange page. You had this massive sort of plug-in chainer thing that you could create these enormous combinations of instruments and plugins and effects and stuff all within the software and all running within the single window approach, which many other DAWs have copied since. But the big news is that Tracktion have now released version 7 as the freebie version. As they've now moved on to Waveform and into Waveform 9, they've always had a history of releasing a previous version completely for free. And now that's up to version 7, which is brilliant. I mean, it's like no other freeware software out there because you get unlimited tracks, unlimited MIDI, you get VST support, you get all of that editing and proper arranging and stuff and vocal comping and just really high quality stuff all within this now free DAW. So I still hope to tackle Waveform 9 at some point with a full review, but in the meantime, if you're after a DAW or looking at trying something a bit different, then check out Tracktion 7 because it's completely free. Now secondly, they've released Retromod kind of without telling anyone. I feel like I'm going on about this a lot, but Tracktion have released this collection of sample-based instruments that are really rather good, and it's just they just don't seem to be making much of a fuss about them. I don't see them anywhere, I don't see videos about them, I don't see press releases about them, and that's a shame because I think these are really rather good. There's 3 of them. One deals with Moog stuff. I mean, yeah, we get a lot of Moog virtual synths knocking around, but these are dealing with all the sort of the more recent ones. So rather than the Model D and old bits and pieces, this covers the Voyager, the Fatties, the Sub-Fatties and the other ones that I can't remember the name of. And it just pulls in hundreds and thousands of presets and samples of these quite marvelous instruments and puts them into a very simple little interface with a few controls over bits and pieces and effects and stuff, and gives you a lovely wide palette of Moog sounds. The next thing they tackled was all of the Junos. I mean, all of the Junos, all the Roland Juno keyboards, they've sampled all of those and stuck those together in a single instrument, and you can mix and match sounds with filters from others and bits and pieces and put all those together in a really lovely way. Then thirdly, it's all the clavier stuff, all the Nord lead, the Nord modular, the Nord this, that and the other, all of those amazingly sort of contemporary and modern synths. They've packed all those together, sampled the heck out of them and presented them to you in a nice simple format. They're really quite good. So if you want something a little bit different, a little bit away from the norm, a little bit of a more modern classic, then go and check those out. They do them as a bundle or individually, and you can even go and download a demo for free. Now the Percussa SSP is kind of that uber posh, supersonic, super processing wavetable, massively a sort of screen thing with posh knobs and stuff going on that no one really understands. It's this massive Eurorack module that's got a computer brain in there for processing all sorts of things. It was supposed to be sort of a bit of a wavetable synth, but then it just kept evolving into more and more stuff. So it's got oscillators in there, sure, but it's also got modulators and filters and sequencers and granular stuff and all sorts of weirdness going on. Whatever they seem to think of, they can plumb into this module and you can access it on all the stuff and things. A beautiful screen it's got in there displaying all sorts of data. Well, now they seem to have cracked a completely new ballgame, and that's to enable this module to accept VST plugins. Oh yes, VST plugins. VST plugins directly within your Eurorack in a module. Now there's quite a concept. Now the thing is, it's not all what it sounds like because it only supports Linux VST. Now a lot of synthesizers and a lot of plugins are Linux compatible, and so most of those will become available. I don't really think that it will deal with sample-based instruments, so the Tracktion ones I've just talked about, which are Linux compatible, I don't see how those would work using some kind of sample library, but any which are CPU based, for instance the Wave Razor, also by Tracktion, those would have a much better chance of running on this thing. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of videos on it or anything, but it certainly seems to be a possibility of opening up Eurorack to new and exciting and weird stuff. I mean, for me, I don't know whether it's my kind of thing. It seems to be too much of a digital expression put through Eurorack, which is just not my thing. I mean, I don't mind things being digital or analog, that's not important. It's more to do with the interface and how that layers up and how you interact with that. You know, to have something digital like with noise engineering and have that behind a stimulus, it doesn't matter what the sound source is because you've still got the knobs and the front panel and stuff going on. But once you start getting into screens and menus, it starts to lose, for me, starts to lose some of its hardware appeal, I think. But if you're the sort of person who's into this sort of OS heavy module, then it's a flipping awesome thing. It's amazing and it continues to evolve and get better all the time. Now, Folktek have consistently sort of amazed and delighted me with their instruments and modules. Just fabulous looking stuff, amazing works of art that they put into their instruments and modules. They're sort of weirdly organic. They have flavors of steampunk and experimentation to them. They're just beautiful objects to behold. Now, there seems to be something going on with Folktek. I'm not entirely sure what it is. It's not been fully revealed yet, I don't think, but they seem to have had a rash of modules come along. And these are modules that are a little bit less on the crazy side. They seem to have a purpose and a direction and an intention, and actually might be the sort of things you would use in a rack. It's like they're moving from a place of purely artistic noise generation into something a bit more coherent and accessible, which might be nice. So recent releases such as Matter 2 and Gate and Root and Quiet, these things seem to be an indication that they are sort of working towards something, that something is on the horizon that's going to bring all these bits and pieces together. Maybe they're working on a full synthesizer rack, or maybe they're just upping the production on their modules generally and want to release a more coherent range of products. I don't know. I mean, the sound generated by the stuff that they do is often kind of surprising, because you get the impression that it would be a thing of beauty. These ambient tones would sort of come out like fairy dust, when actually most of it is very noisy and crunchy and dirty and vintage and horrible to some ears. But it's all in the realm of experimentation. It's all in the realm of shaping noise and folding stuff and modulating stuff and all that sort of thing. So it ends up generating this artisan noise. Does that make any sense? I don't know. They just don't sound as beautiful as they look. I guess is what I'm trying to say. But the noise that they generate is not just any old kind of crappy noise. This is noise, man. This is the stuff to get your teeth into. This is the things that have grown out of the garden. It has an earthiness, a reality to it, a kind of a crazy, glitchy, ooh. But if you've never come across Folktek before, then I really do recommend checking them out. And the website is never great. It never gives the proper impression, I think. It looks like it's a bit half-baked. But then a lot of the text is a bit half-baked. Do they really know what they're talking about? I have no idea. Do we really understand what they're trying to get across? That I don't know either. But some of the photography in there is extraordinary, and some of the sounds are just a bit mind-blowing. So go dig around, check them out, and keep an eye on them, because something awesome, I think, is just around the corner. Now, this looked pretty interesting. It's apparently based on the idea of ancient Greek instruments. I mean, I'm not entirely sure what. I mean, were they horns or harps or just things they bang? I don't know. But this piece of software, this plugin, this virtual instrument is essentially kind of a complex additive synthesizer. You've got a whole stack of harmonics that you can bring in and out. You've got a whole bunch of noise flavors or noise colors, perhaps, that color the sound, and then a massive modulation engine that goes and moves it all about. And what this is brilliant at is generating evolving, moving drones and textures, because you can modulate the heck out of all of these harmonics coming in and coming out and moving about and juddering around. And it's that creates this sort of world of motion around what they're doing. It's called Aeolian Meditation, I think, by Ocean Swift. And at 35 quid, I think that's well worth a pop for anyone interested in drone kind of textures. It'll do melodies, sure it'll do melodies, but for me, for my money, drone seems to be what it really excels at. But yeah, go check that out. Well, 808 day, eh? 808 day, the 8th of August. What a load of crap that was this year. What was that all about? I've no idea. I mean, 808 day has become a bit of a thing. 8th of August, 808. Do you see? Do you get that? You see, well, Roland sort of adopted that along with 909 day on the 9th of September. See what they're doing there? Oh, it's just brilliant. But a couple of years ago, they started doing that and they released massive things on these days. We had the TR-09, of course, their recreation of the 909 drum machine. And then the following year on the 808 day, they released the TR-808, along with something like the SH-108 as well. Boutique stuff, very, very cool stuff. We're all jumping up and down going, oh wow, this is really exciting. I wonder if it will keep on going. So 808 day comes around this year. We're going, yeah, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? Roland have pushed our expectations up so alarmingly high that it was going to do nothing but disappoint, I fear. So what did we get? We got not one, but 2 pairs of trainers. Oh yes, 2 pairs of 808 trainers could be yours. 2 different flavors, a dark one and then a sort of a light fruity one, both by Puma, not by that company that put out the concept of the 808 trainers a couple of years ago. No, they seem to be lost, so we're not happy with them. But this is done by Puma. So you can get yourself lovely 808 colored trainers. That was it. That was 808 day. You can buy some trainers. It's just awesome. I mean, it was rumored that Behringer were going to steal the day and release something exciting about their own 808 clone. But no, they didn't take it up. All they did is release a video of someone playing on it, and it was the same prototype that we saw at Superbooth. So kind of, oh, really? Yeah, no, nothing new. Nothing from anybody. It was a really dull day. Oh no, they did release an update for System 8, which included the JX3P plug-out. So that was something, a new synth for System 8 users. Great. But that was it. So 909 day, just round the corner, a week or so away. I wonder if we can be bothered to hope for something more. I mean, come on, Roland, you've created these days. We've embraced them as a community, and now we expect results. We expect new products every year on these days, please. Not just a pair of trainers, I mean, please. The least you could do is an 808 cardigan or something like that. Since the adoption of MPE, that's MIDI polyphonic expression, quite possibly, by the MIDI Manufacturers Association, we've seen bugger all come out to support this wonderful new and exciting format. But this month we're seeing 2 software synthesizers make the leap into a 5-dimensional world of polyphonic expression. First up is Cypher 2 from the Rolley owned FXpansion. It's an analog moduling sonic sort of playground of crazy sound design and monstrous complexity. It's so complicated that they haven't even put a screenshot of it on the webpage. I think they're too scared. I think it might scare people off. Go, oh my goodness, what the heck is all this? There's a ton of stuff on there. It just goes all over the place. And it has this transmod engine, which I don't quite know what it means, except that it can modulate everything from everything. So it has a massive modulation engine that moves stuff all over the place. And all of the knobs and controls and parameters are all animated. So once you get the thing going, the whole screen is like in motion, like it's some kind of creature, or you're looking down at a city from far above and everything is moving around and creeping around and creepy crawlies all over the place. Yeah, it's quite nice. It's quite nice, it's quite fun. So stick in your C board, stick in your roller keyboard and start to play and push your fingers forward and backwards and side to side and wiggle them about, and it generates all sorts of weird sonic textures. It's immense. I mean, it sounds huge. There are 3 oscillators going on with a whole bunch of different waveforms. There's FM getting jammed in there. There's twin filters and 30 effects all getting struggling around for a bit of modulation action. I mean, it's an immense experience. I mean, the whole MPE thing is fascinating and just takes you into new places and new directions and new things you haven't thought of. And it allows you just to move and to go with the flow as you push all these sounds and these parameters all over the place. It's an amazing thing. FXpansion and Rolley worked on it together to try to produce just the most fantastic instrument you could possibly imagine. And yeah, they've really given that a go. And it will of course play with regular MIDI too, but you'll be missing out on all those additional dimensions. So it's time that you got yourself an MPE controller. Second, we have the similarly complex Crusher X. Now this is all about granular stuff, granular synthesis. You know, that sort of sample-based thing that none of us really understand. And Crusher X embraces all of that misunderstanding and slaps it on a thing to show you stuff growing and granulating and distorting and moving about and grains being created. And now with your 5-dimensional control, you can push that all over the place. You've got grains coming and going and splitting and distortion and intensity and density and stuff. As I say, it's complex and it's probably easier to explain. No, I don't think it's ever going to be easy to explain. I mean, they keep asking me to do a review of it, which I would very much like to do. It's just It's bigger than the headspace I could give it at the moment. But I do plan to sit down with it one of these days and just go, right, what does this fella do? Because some of the sounds coming out of it are just quite extraordinary. And once you again get into that multi-dimensional expression, then I think it could be very exciting. So yeah, Crusher X, it's weird and it's quite unique, I think, and now available as an MPE expressive instrument. Strange Science Instruments have released a pair of quite sort of somber and serious looking Eurorack modules. Firstly, there's a very sober stereo mixer and then a stereo filter. But what's interesting about them is that they released a video kind of explaining the entire process, explaining what they were doing, why they released these modules, and then how they put them together, what the process was of getting a design put together, prototyping, and then creating the PCBs and getting those back and populating them and testing them out and refining them and then coming up with a finished product. And it's a really interesting video for anyone who's interested in either electronics or in Eurorack. It's very enlightening. I mean, it's very light. They're not going into masses of detail. It just gives you this interesting journey through their thought process. They also seem to think that they've invented the concept of stereo, which is interesting. They looked at Eurorack and saw that it was a mono system with mono audio going all over the place, and they thought to themselves, oh, that's a problem. Why haven't they embraced stereo? They thought to themselves, right, we're going to fix that. So they've attempted to solve this problem of mono in Eurorack by providing their modules in stereo. So you can put your mono sources into their 4-channel stereo mixer and output a stereo signal. And the result of that, of course, is that you then have to double up on all of the modules in your Eurorack. Because that's a problem with stereo. The stereo requires 2 channels of everything. So you need 2 VCAs, 2 envelopes, 2 filters, 2 modulators. And you've just doubled the price of an already expensive piece of gear. So I don't really get where they're coming from with this. I mean, sure, we need stereo at some point, but personally, for me, stereo comes at the end. You know, once everything's done everything and gone through everything, it then gets routed out into a mixer, which allows me to pan it into the stereo field, and bazang, there you go, there's your stereo-ness. I don't need to route through stereo effects necessarily, or if I do, I'll do that again at the end. So for me, from my point of view, mono is fine. Mono is what I need. It keeps it all going. I mean, instruments are mono. I mean, they say things like, you know, really helpful things like, oh, well, we have 2 ears, therefore we hear in stereo. Yeah. What does that have to do with anything? Every instrument on the planet is mono. You play a flute, it's not in stereo. It's mono. It's where it is. It's a single instrument. A pickup from the guitar is mono. Everything's mono. It's all mono when it gets recorded. Unless you use a stereo mic situation, of course. But initially, everything is mono and then goes through your mixer and then it becomes stereo. Isn't it? Oh, I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. However, their stereo filter is a different thing because those are actually, is a dual channel individual filter. So you can use each filter individually, which is useful in any context because you've now got 2 filters you can use for 2 different things rather than 1 stereo filter on 1 stereo signal, because that's very annoying in Eurorack, or at least I think so. But you know, this is one of those things we can discuss at the live stream on Sunday. Come along to the live stream on Sunday, 8 PM, the 2nd of September, and we can talk about these sorts of things. Whether you think mono versus stereo in Eurorack is even a thing. I mean, I don't really accept the premise of the question. It just makes no sense to me. It's a completely weird thing, I think, to go on about. But there you go. On the other hand, the modules themselves look fabulous. Very posh, very good, made from all the highest quality bits of kryptonite and stuff that you could ever possibly find, and so they're fabulously expensive, which is nice. Now this is a very cool and fruity virtual modular environment called ModulAIR. ModulAIR, I think it is. And it gives you a single window GUI packed full of 18 different slots that you can stick in a whole bunch of modules. All the usual stuff's there, all the oscillators and the filters and the modulators and the sequencers and the bits of logic and all that kind of stuff, all slapped in there in very similar looking module front panels, styly stuff. It's both monophonic and polyphonic. You can play up to 64 voices of stuff. If you want, you can sequence stuff and move stuff about and modulate everything into everything else. Now it gets around all that sort of mess with animated patch cables by not having any. It just doesn't have any. Instead, you right click on a destination, I think, and then choose from the list of available modulators to put into it. So it's not like, oh, I'm just going to try things about the place. No, you kind of have to grasp what it is you're trying to do and then decide to do it. So it's less intuitive, I suppose, and more intentional. But the great thing about this is that it's completely free. It's free and it sounds great. Just stepping through the presets, it's like, oh wow, that's actually quite nice. So it's a great little place to sit down and just play with the idea of modular sounds. Now, Full Bucket Music say that it's likely to crash your system, to bomb out, to explode, to fall apart at any given moment, because it's a beta, and a bit of a dodgy beta at that. It's not a refined beta by any stretch, and it freely admits that this is going to mess up your system. But I didn't actually find that in my playing with it. It's been completely well behaved. But see how you go, and just take that with a little warning that every now and again it might just disappear, and you're not going to get any help with that. It's just how it goes. They also say that any future versions that come out, any proper and full releases, may or may not support presets you've created in the other one. No promises, no guarantees. It's just a fun bit of free software that sounds actually really good. Talking of which, the other new virtual modular environment on the block is Voltage Modular from Cherry Audio. I've been playing with that for the last month or so, and it's very interesting. Very interesting. I need to play with it a bit more really before I make any big pronouncements on whether it's awesome or not. I mean, it looks a lot like Reason does. It has that kind of vibe going on, but it has a whole stack of modules in there. Loads of stuff that I don't even know what to do with. Lots of logic-based things and CV processes and stuff, along with all the usual oscillators, filters, and things that you get in the modular system. It seems to work well. Some of the animation on the patch cables is really nice, and it's now reached a position where it's available to everyone. It's an open beta. You can go and apply for access to it. Just sign up and they'll send you the beta version to play with yourself, I think. Now, there's not a lot of chatter about it generally out there on the internet. Everyone seems to be focused on VCV Rack, which is fair enough. That's open source and very, very funky. So I would be really interested to see what your view is on Voltage Modular. Go and sign up, download it, give it a go, and just see what you think. Create some patches, stick some videos up. I'd just be really interested in other people's opinion, because I'm still formulating mine, still trying things out. But what I found is that the communication with the developers has been excellent. I mean, they've already thrown together a bunch of modules that I suggested. I wanted to convert the CV to MIDI so I could send it out to my hardware modular. And they went, okay. And a couple of days later, bam, there was some CV to MIDI modules. So you can now use the very good drum computer that's in there, very much of an 808 styly, and wire that up to CV to MIDI to go out via a MIDI to CV interface. Oh, it sounds a bit complicated, but it's not really. So going out via my Hermod, straight into my Eurorack, and I can now program drums on my computer, on my Surface, that is running drums in the Eurorack, or sending out modulation, or whatever I like, sequencing, blah, blah, blah. And that's great. It's quite an interesting way to meld together these two worlds, one a virtual version and one a real version. Yeah, and that saves me having to buy the Erica Synths drum computer, I suppose, or something of that nature. So yeah, very interesting. So I'm out there making videos on that, and I'd like you to as well, and come and talk to me about it, and we'll see if we can get to the bottom of whether this thing is really good or an also-ran. We'll see. Now, this was announced at NAMM, and it was also demonstrated at Superbooth, and I completely ignored it. I just thought that they had sort of implemented some MIDI mapping of hardware synthesizers to parameters in Omnisphere, and to me that didn't sound particularly exciting. Now, it turns out it is really exciting, and I'm only just sort of catching up on the vibe, I suppose. So what they've done essentially is map a few controls on a hardware synth to parameters in Omnisphere. So why is this exciting again? Well, it's exciting because they've sort of evolved Omnisphere to tailor itself to the hardware synth that you're using. So, for instance, you get a Moog Voyager out, has all these knobs and parameters all over it, and Omnisphere then has a Moog Voyager profile which tailors itself to all of those controls. So when you move the filter on the Moog, it changes the filter In Omnisphere, when you go for the modulation, it does the modulation. It matches those parameters to itself completely seamlessly and completely perfectly, so that the sound that you get out of Omnisphere is somehow different in character and specific to the hardware synth that you're using. So if you use a Prophet 6 instead, it's generating different parameters based on the layout of the Prophet 6 and gives you a different vibe and a different way of editing sounds within Omnisphere, and so will undoubtedly generate sounds which are more tailored to the Prophet 6. That doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense as I'm saying it out loud, but if you look at the video where they're showing you how this works, it's pretty phenomenal. I mean, Omnisphere 2 and now 2.5 is an immense software synthesizer. It's a huge thing. I mean, I've been playing with it since Atmosphere, which was great, a paddy synth. I just love that kind of sound and that kind of vibe. But I've never actually upgraded to Omnisphere 2. It just seemed too enormous, too huge. I was quite happy with what was contained within Omnisphere 1. But now I'm pretty tempted. I mean, mainly because one of the bits of hardware on the list is the Base Station 2, and I have a Base Station 2, and they say that the Base Station 2 with Omnisphere is awesome. It works brilliantly and has a lot of funkiness and weirdness going on with it. Excellent. That's what I like. Along with all of this hardware integration, they've also upgraded the sound engine, added extra layers, extra modulation channels, more stuff, more filters, more all sorts of things going on there in order for it to tailor itself to all these different bits of hardware. And more hardware profiles will be along. There's 30 odd, I think, at the moment, covering, you know, Dave Smith and Oberheim and Moog and Korg and Roland and Novation and all sorts of bits and pieces. I mean, it's really very clever. I mean, everybody else is sort of doing the opposite, like with Native Instruments and their NKS or Akai and the VIP stuff. They're trying to take a single hardware controller and map all of the synths to it, whereas this takes a single virtual instrument and maps a whole load of hardware to it in really interesting and creative ways. Yeah, very interesting indeed. However, it will mess the heck out of all your presets on your hardware synth. Erica Synths have been slowly releasing modules from their Techno system that we saw at Superbooth, and they're all sort of individually awesome, but now they have announced the release date and price of the whole system as a whole, in a box, with power supply, mobile box thing all together, sort of 15 or 16 modules, I think, all packed together, all in one unit, all ready to go. And that release date is the 21st of September, and that price is just shy of 4,000 euros. Whew, that's a lot, but it is a fully plugged in work system ready to go. Now, there are other sort of pre-built systems out there already, like the Make Noise shared system, perhaps. But I think how this differs is somehow in the intentionality. With the shared system, you've got this awesome selection of modules of which you can do whatever the hell you like. But that in itself is kind of a problem, because if you're new to Eurorack and you're jumping in by buying a nice big sort of preset system, then you're going to be completely mystified by it. It will be fathomless. How on earth, how do I make anything with this? Because it's so open, because you can make anything, you end up not being able to make anything except for little bleepy noises. Whereas with the Erica Synths Techno system, it makes techno music. You can't help but start generating beats and rhythms and noises and farts and distortion and stuff out of there. I mean, the drum computer, you feed that straight into all the drum modules and you get a beat coming out, you know, it falls to the floor, going in there, then you've got a bass synth and you can wire that up, there's sequencing going on there, and you're off. You know, you're soaring, you're flying, you're going straight out of the box. I don't think you can help but make banging techno with it. But of course it doesn't have to do that. You can make it do whatever you like. I mean, the individual modules themselves are pretty fabulous. I mean, I'm loving the bass synth voice, I have to say, and they've also released that as a kit. I mean, a DIY version, I'm gonna have a go at that at some point. But I digress. I mean, essentially the Techno system, it's coherent, it's intuitive, and it's accessible. I mean, those can often be very rare terms in Eurorack. And they've unexpectedly produced a whole bunch of white panels for it, which is the weirdest, most un-Erica Synths thing I think they've ever done. Nice one. And finally, as the sun is just dipping behind my house over there, we're going to go back to the Surface for the moment. Now, I had a conversation with Pablo Martin a little while ago. He's the one half of Smiths and Martin who did all the work. He's like the genius programmer behind the emulator touch controller software, which was then bought up by Touch Innovations, who I think more or less completely destroyed it I've never got version 2 to work. Anyway, Pablo left, took his stuff and left shortly after Touch Innovations got involved, and has since been developing his own touch software. And he got in touch with me to say, hey, I'm developing this software. And I said, oh, that's cool. And the conversation moved on to other things and what he's doing. And we talked about the Control Master, which is that knob controller that Smiths & Martin did just before Touch Innovations got involved. And Pablo was the man behind all of that. And so we then moved on to the Surface Dial. And I suggested to him how it would be great if it had the kind of functionality that the Control Master had. And he said, yeah, he's tried it and it's really, really hard. The way the software is written for it is just weird and complicated and totally impenetrable. There's just no way in to do anything useful with it. And I went, oh, that's a shame. And then a couple of days later, he got back in touch and say, I gave it one more go and I'm in. I'm flipping in. I got me hooks in. I coded like a crazy person and I've cracked it. And he's into the Surface Dial. And then within a week, he had an app for me which allowed you to take control of parameters within a virtual synth or within a MIDI environment and control it with the Surface Dial. Flipping awesome. Just like that. He got his hooks in and was going. Cody. And it works. It was great. Went through a quick couple of versions and updates and then boom, bang, it's out there. There you go. Not hard, is it? I'd love to have that kind of coding ability. That must be amazing to be able to create like that. Just from an idea, get stuck in and then produce something awesome. It's just amazing. So what can I do? So the Surface Dial, it's called Elephant for reasons I'm not sure will ever become clear. But what you do, you run it and it takes over the dial and it allows you to click and hold on any parameter in any piece of software really, but in music software in particular. And then you turn the dial and it moves the parameter up and down or round and round or side to side, or whichever direction it is that it's supposed to go. So you could be in anything and click and hold on, you click and hold on one hand and dial with the other. It gives your left hand something to do, which is great in of itself. So click and hold, dialy, and you get a turn rotational feel and movement to virtual parameters. Fantastic. Do you want that? I don't know. Could you just do it with your mouth? Of course you could, but it's a different feeling, a different way of controlling things, which could bring out a different response, a different expression, a different connection between you and the software. And that, I think, is always interesting. There's also a MIDI mode, so you can map it instead. You can map it to 6 different parameters, and then you don't have to hold the mouse or anything at all. You can just select which one you want to control and control it. Got lots of sensitivity options, so it can be really fast or really slow or very fine, minute details. It's great. It just works. Now, of course, there are hardware knobs out there that are designed to do the job and are probably going to do it better. But the Surface Dial in of itself is a lovely little piece of engineering that's completely useless to most people. And if, like me, you bought one because you thought, oh, that's going to be really great, and then can't find anything to do with it other than, oh, look, I can scroll in web pages. That's really exciting. Anyway, it gives it something really genuinely useful to do. Control knobs in a piece of software. That's excellent. That's exactly the sort of thing you want. You don't have to have a Surface to run it. You can run it with any computer. It just connects via Bluetooth and you're off. The Elephant app costs a couple of dollars and there's a free version. You can try it out. You can just go and give it a go. It's simple, it's effective, it works. It's just brilliant. And I want to applaud Pablo for getting stuck in and giving it a go. And Microsoft, if you are out there, check this out. Check it out and give him some support. You know, fold it in, give him some help. Let him open it up even more so he can get more of his stuff in there, because that would be great. It's the sort of thing you should be doing all along. So yeah, Surface Dial, Elephant. Go check it out. So that'll do for now. I think that's August, that's the summer, all tied up and sorted out. So what do we have coming up next? Well, I have a whole load of modular DIY videos coming up shortly. I decided after much thought and deliberation that I'll go for a Percussa oscillator as my first oscillator DIY project, my first DIY project in this series. It's called the Even VCO. It's a great little oscillator, you know, makes a noise and stuff. I mean, Percussa do a whole load of kits, and so I imagine they're going to feature quite a bit. And also because the lovely people at Percussa sent me a couple of kits along with it, which is really nice. So I've got a couple of extra things of there to try out as well. And also the Sample Slicer 2 has arrived, so I really want to get into doing that pretty soon as well. I have like half a dozen kits now, all sitting there going, make me, and I will get around to it as soon as I can. The Surface Go, of course, is also primed for videos. I'm going to start off, I think, by just seeing if there's anything in the Windows Store that will run on it as music software, by itself, because it has, or it comes as standard with Windows 10S, which is the version that only lets you use the apps that are in the Microsoft Store. You can't install anything else. And so I thought it'd be interesting to see whether that is of use to anybody at all as far as music production goes. And then from there, we'll install proper Windows 10 and move on. So over the next weeks and months, I'm going to be sticking out all sorts of videos about the Surface Go because people seem to be interested. And I think that might be a lot of fun. I have a live stream planned for this Sunday, the 2nd of September, 8 o'clock British summer time. So do come and join me. They've been a lot of fun. I've done one for the last 3-4 months. I can't quite remember. And they're good. I just sit there rattling on about stuff in response to the comments that people bring. So we talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'll have a few subjects that I'll throw up and I'll just have a go at. I might even play some music on the Modular. Or not, I might poke at the Surface Go. Who knows? It's kind of up to you really. So come along, bring your questions or your thoughts or just a sense of humour, and we'll have a chat for an hour, 2 hours maybe. Who knows? That's this Sunday. So I'm sorry about the short notice, but because this month has just been crazy bonkers, this is as soon as I could tell you. So anyway, there you go. And also Synth Fest is nearly upon us. It's in October in Sheffield and is a wonderful show of fabulous synthesizers and modulars and people and gear and seminars and stuff to play with. I'm definitely going to be there, I think, as best I can. And absolutely feel free to approach me and say hello, and we can hang out and feel awkward for a little bit if you fancy. I don't mind. I really don't mind talking to people if I have to. But it's a great show to go to, so do go and look that one up. And finally, I'd really like to thank all of my patrons out there who have joined me on Patreon into this journey about music technology, about modular, about the Surface, about software, hardware, synthesis, sampling, all those sorts of things. They get on board and they throw me a couple of dollars every month just to keep the whole thing afloat, and it's just so enormously useful. So if you've enjoyed this video, if you like what I do, then please get on board. Just throw me $1 a month or $10 a month, $100 a month, whatever you fancy. Just get in there and give it a go, because that's the only way that this sort of stuff keeps on going. And other than that, please share it about, please talk about it, comment, stick it out there so that more people can enjoy the wonderful wisdom that I bring to this subject, or something. So that's it, and in the meantime, go and make some tunes.